What is the future of Webtech? What will websites look like in the future? This may not be a question that maybe you've asked yourself, but this is going to be the driving question behind today's conversation. And on this episode, I have on Grant Sparks. Grant has been building websites for clients for more than 10 years, and I've been building websites for clients for around 6 years. And today we're really just going to nerd out about the future of webtech. In my own life, I've seen websites go from desktop to laptop to smartphone to tablet to now smartwatches. And due to the IoT or Internet of Things, we're starting to engage with websites from our cars, from our refrigerators, from really anything that you can kind of put electricity into. So the future of web tech is going to continue to evolve. And on this episode, we dive into where it's been, where it is today, and where it may be moving forward in the future. Much of this conversation is really looking at how the future of web tech is going to influence brands, whether that's for an influencer, a creator, or a small business, and how these three categories, or anyone that's trying to build brand on the internet, can start to think about how to better engage with your desired clients or your desired audience. Because in the future of the internet, there's going to be even more noise than there is today. A lot of this is going to be due to the fact that you're going to be able to create content using AI with little to no friction. So in a world where content can be created at scale and there's a lot of noise, it's going to be really important that individuals find their own signal. So get ready, because we're about to talk about the future of web tech. I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is More Than Blockchain. Grant, welcome back to More Than Blockchain. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I say welcome back because this is the third time. This is a big deal.
I remember the second. I thought this was the second time. What was the third time?
This is the third time. No, you came on. Okay, so you came on when it was still Wi-Fi and water,
Yeah.
and I believe episode 12,
Okay.
where we talked about DeFi and financial freedom.
Yes.
And then came on, I believe, episode 54. Once again, check the notes of this episode. I'll have all the links to all the older episodes with Grant. And then that's where we talked about, that was seemingly more recent, and that was where we were talking about the portfolio balancing. We were talking about real estate, stocks, and crypto. And we did that, I think it was the last episode of 2022, or was the first episode 2023, because it was like the kickoff of like, hey, you got to rebalance your portfolio, everyone. And I want to thank you for hopping on now, because basically I was struggling. I'm going to NFT NYC this week, and I'm just like, I got to get an episode out. Let
Totally
me see if
jealous.
Grant's got 5 seconds. Fire up the mic. And we're going to talk today about the differences, probably the nuances, or I'm not really sure, the space between Web 2 and Web 3. You and I call it Web 2.5, where
Yeah.
we kind of live now.
Mm-hmm.
And you work with small business owners and you support them with web services,
Yeah.
web pages, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about all the other things you do too.
Sure.
And I've been helping people, and I call them clients now, but I've been helping friends and also not friends. Now they're just clients get their small businesses a website. And I've been using Squarespace. I know you've been using WordPress for,
Mm-hmm.
I think, more than a decade. But either way,
Since the first year
we
was up. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So it's going to be good. I want to know, and we spoke about this briefly yesterday. Where is the future of the web going for not only small businesses, but for like the world? That's a pretty open question. So why don't you start there? And I think people maybe know who you are if they listen to Not Crypto Bros, or if not, if you want to give a little intro, that'd be great too.
Yeah, I'm Grant Sparks, and I help people come up with their freedom frameworks. That was something Jared actually coached me on. My mission statement is igniting lives of explosive significance, but that has led us into a variety of worlds. The one you're speaking of is the website design company. And that was really just a financial freedom money machine that I was getting asked about all the time. And when we moved back from the Dominican Republic, it just made sense. So we got in, and our goal was the same philosophy of Elon Musk with space shuttles. What is the brass tacks? What does it actually take to build? What is the hard material of building a website? And it's pennies. It's pennies. And there's labor too. You can't ignore the labor, that counts. But we were wondering why people, especially nonprofits doing good work, kept having crap websites, and it was a money issue. And they were getting quoted tens of thousands of dollars for a website. And we said, we can do this better. So we started the website company. And in that same period, that was about 2013. In that same period, actually 2011, I was even in Bitcoin before formal websites. I've been doing actually websites since 2004. And then I started in WordPress in 2007. But as a company, doing it for others was 2013. So Bitcoin was first. My journey with a web design company has actually paralleled the ups and downs of the crypto market. So then, before I go any further, Jarrett, there's multiple aspects of website design, and we might touch on several of them, but as a starting point, when you asked the question, where do I think it's going? Are you talking about at the consumer level, be it like the buyer of the website, or are you talking about something else?
I'm talking about the front end. I'm talking about the user experience. I'm talking about what 99% of people will understand as a website, right? You and
Yeah.
I could get into nuance. I know personally that WordPress is way better than Squarespace. I just started building on Squarespace, for example, and this is like such a technical, nerdy conversation about the things most people don't see when they look at a website.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I go to a website, for example, I'm always interested, what was this built on? Today, there's a lot of Wix. Today, there's Squarespace. GoDaddy has a free product. Google, I think, has like a free product if you have your domains with them, or even if you don't. WordPress is obviously, I think, what'd you say, 60+% is still built on WordPress.
63 to 68%, depending on how you measure it, of all websites in the world, including the White House, the Wall Street Journal, and CNN.com.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously WordPress is I'd say the blue chip standard if you're trying to build an enterprise level website. We're getting into the technics,
Yeah.
the technicals here, but yeah, I'm really focused on when I say that, not so much on the back end, because I
Uh,
think people listening to this, they're probably not as nuanced about, what certain websites can do on the back end, but
mm-hmm.
what the experience will be on the front end.
I like this.
Because
Yeah.
websites have changed a lot, even in the
Yeah.
last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
even since I've started building on Squarespace, which was in 2017, and
Mm-hmm.
between now and 2017, Squarespace has evolved and it's had to.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically been pushed to evolve, honestly, by WordPress and vice versa. And I've seen some of the drag and drop now that WordPress have in like Elementor and other things that they offer. Because I've been in the back of a WordPress for the last company I was at. I was trying to help out. And anyways, all that's to say, yeah, when I ask you, it's really about the experience that
Mm-hmm.
the end user will have,
Yeah.
because it's just the same for cars. I don't know anything about cars, right? I'm not a mechanic. I'm not very fluent with that, but I know as a consumer,
Mm-hmm.
wow, the experience has changed.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, for example, and we're going to talk about cars here, but when I was a kid, I remember they used to sell you, be like, yo, he got a new car. It was fully automatic. Like, because you used to have the roll down windows,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, so
Automatic
having everything
windows. Yeah.
fully automatic. Yeah. And then every years, if you think about cars, and I'll hopefully bring the analogy back to the websites, but it's like every year when you think about cars, there are all these bells and whistles that 2 years before maybe you had to pay for, but now they're just included. Every car used to not have a touch screen in the center console. Every car used to
Mm-hmm.
not have a backup camera that wasn't always included.
Mm-hmm.
Every car didn't have a sunroof. All of these things that now many cars still come with. And I think with websites it's the same. What you can do with a website now that even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think it's just so much easier. The technology is just incredible. So when I think about small businesses, and this is the conversation we had yesterday, it's like, well, as we go to a more digital and online world, and I think Amazon's really shown the way that if you want to grow a business, you don't have to just sell your t-shirts locally. You could sell your t-shirts to anyone, literally on the planet, if obviously the shipping logistics are there and it makes, dollars and cents to ship. But when we think about all of the small businesses, and then we could talk about, as you said, websites, like CNN and the White House and bigger websites. What is the future for you? Because I know that right now, and this is maybe a tougher question for you, but right now with your website company, most of your clients, and if dare I say 100% of them, are what we would call Web 2 companies. They're not maybe interested in crypto. They're not interested in blockchain. They're not interested in NFTs, DAOs, dApps, any of these blockchain backed ecosystems that we talk about here on More Than Blockchain, and you and I geek about off mic and on mic for hours. Where's the future? And how are you, as a website developer who's also deeply invested into Web3 personally and more professionally, how are you getting people to see the benefits of where websites are going to go? Like, well, what are those conversations you're having with small businesses? And they're like, Grant, we see you hanging out with all this NFT crypto stuff, but we just want you to like keep our,
Keep the website alive.
our
Yeah.
yeah, our pet food store alive.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to approach this, and I have been in long enough that I have my own internal frameworks of like what is a website, and there's the architecture. And for those who don't know, I'm holding up my fingers and I'm counting, right? There's the architecture, and that is what I believe will get revolutionized the most. There's the CMS, which is what we know as the back end. So if you have a WordPress website or any website like it, and if you log in somewhere and create a blog, that's known as your CMS, your content management software or system, depending on what you're thinking. And there are better UXs and better UIs than WordPress, but they come at an exchange in one of the other domains, like the architecture. And then between like the CMS and the architectures, like the SEO layer, like so Wix, for example, has a horrendous framework for SEO. And so if someone was like, "Hey, give me on Squarespace." Squarespace is a little bit better of an SEO. But if someone came to you and said, "Build me a website," you said, "No problem. I always use this one platform. That's great." And if they say SEO, you need to stop and say, "Let me hand you to another website developer who handles WordPress," as a responsible person who is stewarding that person's budget, because Wix and Squarespace have horrendous architectures. So when I think about this, obviously I have nuance, architecture, CMS, somewhere in between that is SEO. And then there's the front end experience. Now, the tough thing about all of this is that 80/20 rule, the Pareto principle of the average small business. By average small business, look it up. The average small business, I'll give you 1 or 2 seconds to guess. Jarrett and I play this game now and again. Jarrett, what's the average small business whole in America? What did we say?
The average small, sorry, what, I don't know if I
Revenue.
understand the question.
How much revenue
Oh, the
did
revenue. Oh, definitely. I'm just going to say less than 100K.
Yeah, yes, you're dead on. And it's 48,000.
Wow.
Because there are so many of them. Think of all the businesses in rural America that didn't make it past the 2-year mark. And so when we use the term small business, I try to be grounded in reality. The average small business owner, when they make a decision, they will first make a decision on price. They will then make a decision on, like, if I have a restaurant or if I have a business and I'm building a website. My second one will be like, does it give the information I need and offer the call to action? So front end, right? Price, front end, and um, then maybe some like, how easy is it for me to add my own stuff? Because that's another price thing. If a business owner says, "How do I manage this myself?" They're actually asking a budget issue. So, some quick numbers that few people think about. Marketing your marketing budget is supposed to be between 11 and 13% of your desired revenue for next year. So if this year you did 100K and next year you want to do, let's just say double, 200K, your marketing budget should be 11 to 13% of 200K. So it should be between 22 and $26,000. And but do you believe the average small business owner can actually shoulder that? And the answer is no. So I say all that to say, when I talk about the future, what everything I'm talking about now and answering your question is from the demand point of view. From the supply point of view, the technology has far surpassed, like, the ability to do NFT wallets, crypto token gating on content, token gating on communities. You and I were looking at 3Web the other day. There's some architecture stuff going on that's just like, let's just fire up this template. Dude, I've been in this thing long enough to watch AI website builders since 2013. People don't realize there was one called the grid.io, and you just hit a space bar and it generated a website, and believe it or not, it was fairly advanced in terms of its onboarding and in terms of how it worked, but the output was still chintzy, and it wasn't taking, like, the actual front end design wasn't that great, and you still had to manually do a bunch. There's another one called AIDA, AIDA, AI Design Assistant, by Bookmark. And I have a white label account with them because I want to start selling AI driven websites to just roll with the hype. But the output is still questionable from a front end design perspective. But So I say this in talking momentarily about the supply, the technological supply for web design is so far and above. But think about these solutions I'm talking about. AI driven website design solutions, they're not for enterprise because why would the White House need an automatically that AI is only answering the cost perspective. Well, the tough thing about this dilemma is at the cost level, you get an this AI driven website for a couple $100. Sure, you beat it on labor, but you then, as a business owner, have the same exact problem that you do when you hand them a Squarespace designed website or a Wix or Weebly website. 2 months in, they're going to hit major design limitations of, well, I wanted this one blog post to do this, or someone asked me how to do e-commerce and I wanted to add e-commerce, or how do I bundle these they're going to be asking questions that are still considered tier 1 support issues, but they are air conditioning people and dog walkers and landscape, like the reality. So the demand side of website design is barely even caring about anything other than price and ease of use. So I think the future, so all that is my context. And so I just wanted to take a second to give that kind of super high level context. But my answer to you is this: the stuff that I am geeked out about, there is massive underlying agency architectural support. So when we talk about, I think AI more than blockchain will impact web design. Now, chicken or the egg here, I believe the crypto craze, and I said this to Jackie Roach yesterday on our call, and I'm going to say this live. Everyone has got to go friend or follow Jackie Roach. I had a divine conversation with her. She's just super sharp. And I said, I don't believe the AI revolution would have happened without first the crypto revolution. The crypto revolution, from a lot of different things that has gone on, wins and failures, I think, is a reignition of the pioneering cyberpunk spirit. And I believe that spirit translated into AI, and AI had more commercial grade, ready for consumer product market fit use cases than crypto has. Aside from currency, like actual liquidity and currency and DeFi. I mean, NFTs, we've been propping up with the promise of community and access and all this other stuff. But like, we haven't even seen what NFTs and ZK knowledge proofs, like really from an identification, IDs, like all that still needs to happen yet. NFTs was just playing in the sandbox with that. I think that AI will impact website design more, except for the metaverse side of crypto. I think augmented reality is coming to websites. Have you seen a website with augmented reality?
I haven't, but I'm excited to. And you've just done a bunch of stuff, and I want to just answer, no, I haven't seen a website
Sure,
with
sure.
augmented reality. I do think augmented reality is going to play a massive part because
Mhm.
in our future, I just think augmented and mixed reality will actually probably play a bigger role in
Mhm.
the next 5 to 10 years
Mhm.
than virtual reality.
Yes.
And there
That's what I'm talking
is
about.
a definite difference between augmented, virtual, and mixed. And I've actually done a podcast on this. I will leave it in the show notes
Mm.
to try to break down that nuance. But
Mhm.
no, I haven't seen one.
S
But I will
Oh, go
say,
ahead.
just to add into that,
Please.
I think the way that we engage on, like here we are talking about websites, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that is just such a basic conversation. And,
Feels like it,
in
right?
100 years, yeah, because in 100 years, if somebody stumbles on this, they'll be like, oh my God, this was the generation that was still looking at screens,
Maybe.
because
Yeah.
screens for them could just be implants, or it could just be things that are already like Neuralink, like Elon,
Mhm.
or they're just going to have goggles. And I know that that sounds all super fantastical and like that's crazy, guys. It almost sounds borderline conspiracy because it is living in a future that doesn't exist. Therefore, it seems crazy. So similar to how if in November of 2019 you said there's going to be a pandemic, the world's going to crash, jobs are going to be lost, the stock market's going to break. I would say absolutely not. That's not
Mm.
going to happen. So, the world can change quite quickly. And I know that Apple, I believe, probably in their September drop, September 2023, they're going to be dropping their AR goggles,
Yeah. Yeah.
which should come out for $3,000.
Yeah.
And similar to the way I remember when the iPod came out in 2001 or 2002 and how that changed my relationship with music. Then in 2007, the iPhone came out and that changed my relationship with
Yeah.
information. because then I had it in my pocket. 2023, the goggles, I think, are going to change the way I interact socially. I don't know if that feeds into the to your AR comment.
Well, so for all those who may not remember, glass holes were a thing. Do you remember this? Glass holes? It was the derogatory term given to those who were wearing Google Glass.
Google Glass. Okay. I didn't know that that existed. Google Glass always looked funny. It was kind of like
I
Bluetooth.
loved
Like
it. It was
you loved
it
it.
was the edgiest, most cutting edge thing I had seen to date. And think about this, like, I could walk into a networking meeting. As an ADHD guy that is highly intellectual, thinking in my head at all times, I walk into a room and I forget everyone's name. It's like, "Hey, buddy. Hey, Sally." And I have mnemonic devices, but the Google Glass would do facial recognition. It would look at your contact list, and it would populate the most likely 2 or 3 contacts. And I could walk in and just look at you like this, and I would remember your name. And it would have the facial in my little it was amazing, but obviously everyone was concerned about, and I mean, it got violent. People would have the glasses torn off of their face. "Don't record me, man." And then they kind of retreated into the enterprise space with Google Glass. And I had messed with it. I loved the technology, but instead I bought, it was like $1,200 at the time. I bought $1,200 of Google stock and I made out like a bandit instead. So I never actually bought one. I played with them. I used other people's. It was a phenomenal tech. But here's what inspired me: the future of web. So right now, you are familiar with website design to understand a thing called, or at least what the definition of CSS is. You might not know CSS, you might not know how to code in CSS, but you're familiar that cascading style sheets, which is what CSS stood for, was where all of your styles exist in a single file. And then it cascades throughout the rest of the website. I remember when they invented CSS. It was so groundbreaking, because back then all the code was like line by line, and then eventually it was in the header of the page, and then we realized we could abstract this into a single file called CSS. It was revolutionary. So CSS standards, some of the inventions that have gone on are like light mode and dark mode, right? Like, you can, on your cell phone, have a setting in your cell phone for dark mode. Like, anytime the dark mode's available, automatically select dark mode. And then an app or a website will have a code that will read default settings of your phone, basically yourself. And yourself says, "I prefer dark mode on anything." You download a brand new app. You download Twitter for the first time, or Mastodon, and it can read that and then automatically convert the app. So the website or the app has code and it's kind of like mobile responsiveness. Like, do we have a mobile device or do we have a dark mode? So we are able to read. This is why you want cookies on, because it's reading all of this stuff, aside from data invasion, but this is what's enabled by this. So what I think will happen is, well, what happens? So right now, everyone, one of the nastiest phone calls I typically get in a week when it comes to my website company is, "Hey, this doesn't work on my phone." And we don't build, like, I don't know if you remember the days where you built 2 separate websites, a desktop website and a mobile website, and they were different sites and you charge separately. Clients still ask, like, "Well, what does the mobile site cost?" And I'm like, "Bros, it's called responsiveness," right? Like, we build one website and we build it, it's called mobile first. You remember this? And so, like, it's been like a decade that we've been doing this, but people still ask. So now, but I still get this phone call and I have to ask, "What device do you have?" Because though things are responsive, it's still only 92% accurate, you know? I've got this one phone and it doesn't work on that, and I've got to figure out a font size just for that. Well, this is what I think. Lenses, whether it's the Oculus or the next Apple, you're going to be in there and you're going to be, let's just say you're in Decentraland, or let's say you're touring a virtual tour of Thailand, doesn't matter, but you're hungry. You're going to have a floating menu from the Oculus, from your lens, or from your Apple device. You're going to have a floating menu, and it'll say either browse the web or order food, or it'll have bookmarks just like your browser bookmarks. It's basically a browser, right? And you're going to click order Domino's. We'll just say, "I'm hungry, order Domino's." So you're walking around Phuket, Thailand, or you're in Decentraland watching a Snoop Dogg concert or something. You're going to get hungry, and no one in that virtual space will see what you're doing, but you will see a menu pop up from Domino's. Well, where does that menu come from? So I believe that from first and foremost, an architectural standpoint, Then translated to the user standpoint, I think the first real next gen websites we're going to see are virtual enabled websites or AR, augmented enabled, so that when we put on a device, instead of it reading the iPhone, it reads Oculus. Instead of it reading dark mode, it reads you're in the metaverse versus you're on a tour, because I might have a menu that has a white background because it's easier to read on a white background in, the metaverse Decentraland, because this place I'm in is all dark. Or in Phuket and it's already bright, and I'd rather have a black background to contrast a little bit easier. And then ADA standards, Americans with Disabilities Act standards, will also be built into that. So the question is, as a website designer, am I coding right now? How do I even code? I mean, there's groups working on this in very high abstracted ways. But how do I even code the average dog walker's website? If they're on a meeting in Oculus and they get an emergency phone call that their doggy daycare, their puppy's got to come home early because it's sick to its stomach, they got to do something, or their kids have to come home from school, and they don't want to take the Oculus off and take a phone call like a rube. They want to stay in their space and call the right people and work. We have to code this into websites so that they serve it up to these devices. And we already have to be thinking about this. But here's where I think the innovation will come. The person who builds the website with stock code snippets, GitHub's already working on this. Like you have royalty driven websites or stock photography websites, someone needs to come up with, and this is something I would love to do, but just haven't had the bandwidth, a stock template that people can just like go, I love the way this looks visually. They grab it, the code's under the hood, they drop it into their CSS file, and they're set. That person will make an ish ton of money. Those are the first major ways. We think it's e-commerce, paying with Bitcoin. Do you know we've been paying with Bitcoin since 2015? We've had this functionality. I mean, PayPal rolled it out early, pulled it, and then had it up. People, I think we're going to abstract how we pay entirely. Like it won't be like pick US dollar, pick Bitcoin, pick Cardano. I think we'll actually just have pay, and it will be your local denomination. That's what you're going to pick. But that's a 95% solved, and there's no demand for it. But like ChatGPT showed up, crypto's been around. Crypto led the AI revolution, in my opinion. But the AI revolution took quicker with the average consumer because it solved the problem. The ChatGPT interface solved, like, I have to read all these results and then decide which one's the best for me, and then navigate ads. I didn't realize it, but that's archaic. I've been Googling forever, but that's archaic. I didn't even realize it until I saw ChatGPT. And that's what Peter Thiel calls a 0 to 1 innovation, right? Like, oh my God, I just get the answer and it's like 85% accurate and I'm solid. It's the same, but the parallel there is cryptocurrency payments and e-commerce. Everyone thinks that's the change, and maybe even token gating content. And it's not. That makes some things a little easier, but that's not there yet. I believe it's user interface accounting for alternate devices, specifically augmented reality. Long answer, but that's what I think it's going first.
I think it's a phenomenal answer, and I actually
Did you expect that? Was that even on your
it no, it wasn't what I thought where I thought this was going to go, but I'm really glad it went there. And just for everyone, if you're listening to this and you're not into design, I got on ChatGPT this morning because I knew
Yeah.
that this was going to come up, this UX and UI
Mm-hmm.
design, and I said, into ChatGPT. So we're talking about AI, and it's funny I was saying, hey, how is Web3? Web3 meaning like the blockchain backed ecosystem, NFTs and crypto essentially.
Mm-hmm.
How are these things going to influence web design? And I love that you've already gone into AI, because the reality of it is AI and blockchain, they're hand in glove a lot of the time when
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at stuff.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more. So it's totally salient. And
Mm-hmm.
anyways, before we hopped on, I just hopped into ChatGPT and I said, hey, explain UX and UI to me like I'm five.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm just going to read out what it says just so in case you're listening, because you probably hear UX and UI all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
it says, imagine you have a toy car. The way it looks, its color, and how it feels in your hands when you play with it is the user interface, the UI. The way you feel happy and excited when you play with it because it's easy to use, what you've just kind of spoken about, and makes sense, is the user experience. Just like the toy car, when you use a phone or an app, the way it feels is the UI, and the way it makes you feel happy or frustrated is the UX. And I completely think that what you've said makes sense because just like the way now when you use Apple Pay, I've been using Apple Pay for about a year and a half. And originally I was kind of against it, which if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, I thought he was the tech guy. I don't know. It just felt weird. I had no problem with just taking out a credit card. But once you load your credit card into this thing and you just swipe your phone, you basically already had that conversation once with your phone about what the payment rail is that you prefer.
Yeah.
So then when you go ahead and move it and you use it moving forward, it just knows. And I think that's how the future of payment rails are going to be,
Yeah.
where you're going to just say, you know what, today actually Bitcoin's up. So I'm going to wake up, Bitcoin's my choice.
Yeah.
And then the relationship it has with the payment wall or whatever, it just chooses Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. I've already made that choice. Maybe it's still on a credit card, but it's using Bitcoin through a credit card. I'm not exactly sure. Things are evolving very quickly with crypto payments. But I think you're totally right that AI is going to influence web design. And as we've kind of said, the 1% of people that probably aren't building websites, excuse me, the 99% of people that aren't building websites, as opposed to maybe the 1% that are in design, UX, UI researchers, etc., looking at these things and really trying to like figure out what the best way forward is to build the internet. But what you've said here is amazing. You know, we used to just have basically, I'm going to call them like a flat website. And then we had this mobile optimized. And there was a point where you kind of had to have both going. But what you're saying is in the future, you're actually going to have a desktop website, a laptop website, a tablet website, or a mobile website. And you're going to have an AR website. And that is what people are going to be looking for. And I think this is actually a good little moment where I want to shift a little because a lot of what we've talked about, and you already brought it up, was just the brass tacks. This has to make dollars and cents for small businesses, or they're not going to get to it. And also, maybe their customers have to start to ask for it. Like once these Apple glasses launch and then people start to have more channels essentially to find this new way to access the internet, then maybe the demand will creep up. But until that does, it doesn't matter, as you're saying, that the supply exists for all these crypto innovations if the demand isn't there. So, thinking about small businesses, and I almost want to shift now into thinking about attention.
Yeah.
In the past, attention wasn't as commodified as it is today.
Sure.
I would say the second Facebook decided to run ads, it changed the worlds of attention forever. When Mark first started that thing, he didn't want any ads because he didn't want it to not be cool. Well, they run into the idea that we have all these monthly active users and we have these investors, and the investors want some money back.
Yeah.
And we're not going to charge people. We still want it to be free because that's cool. So, what if we put a sidebar of ads? You know, what if we put an ad here or there? Now, obviously, Facebook, everyone knows the whole thing runs off ads.
Mm-hmm.
But for the small business, for yourself, just in general, how do you think about that relationship between your web presence and the attention that you are garnering and the level that needs to be? Because you've already said, hey, if you want to get to $100,000 in revenue, you need $11,000 to $13,000 in marketing. It almost seems that in the world where we're headed, where attention is the commodity, maybe we actually have to, in that AR world, because people's vision is only so restricted, you may have to fight even more, meaning you may even have to spend more money than 11 to 13%, on top of just creating maybe organic content. So, anyways, I want to have that conversation because I think that that's where people should be thinking when they think about crypto, AI, web presence, building brands, and small businesses as we move forward. Because you and I, obviously, as podcasters and content creators, we do believe that that attention is the new oil.
Oh, yeah. So, there is a nuance to website design that kind of opens this conversation up. And it's the place for token enabled, Web3 enabled website browsing. So there's been an evolution of branding. And the evolution of branding, it's kind of in a dynamic tension moment right now. There's the big brands, right? Nike, Coca-Cola, and they're already embedded as like icons and symbols in our ethos like forever. And so they're just experimenting. They've got enough money to experiment across the board. But when you think about new entrants into the branding world, those who have new companies, Tesla, what is the brand of Tesla? Well, it's Elon. It has been. And maybe kind of giving birth out of that, you have a logo and a company name called Tesla and the T, and the product itself, is really good. Well, has mixed reviews. But in general, what is the brand recognition? Well, it's Elon. SpaceX, definitely Elon. So when you start thinking through, even as far back as Richard Branson with Virgin Atlantic, like there was Virgin, but in all honesty, that was just like that was like the sweat off of Richard Branson's brow. He just sweat this virgin ethos. And if you read his book, Like a Virgin, like I did, it was like the name comes from him, and he is the brand. We were talking about Litecoin and how the founder of Litecoin bailed off of Litecoin, and Litecoin was done. My point is this: new entrance into the branding space of mega brands is Mr. Beast. They're people. And I don't want to use the term influencer in a traditional sense, but in a branding sense, it is influencers. It's a face, it's a personality, which is why there's so many content creators. So that is a fact within website design and what you're talking about from ChatGPT, user experience. How are we making people feel when they arrive here? There's this dilemma in the design space on this. Do I build a website that is our brand? Or do I build a website because the other side of my, me, please consume my brand? It's very Web 2 and successful. It's very Web 2 and successful. We forget that these Web 2 things are economically supremely successful. I know we like to poo-poo them philosophically, because they have the power right now, but that means they won because they worked. Web3 is trying to enable a new paradigm, and often the defining feature of that is customization, personalization. So when I go in, part of the reason we love going into the metaverse, or those who do like going into the metaverse, because it becomes a very personalized experience. Even though someone else constructed it from a design, literally a visual design perspective. It's like the Mona Lisa versus the smiley face. Like, we think about this in art, which one is more relatable? The smiley face, because it's so broad and abstract, I can project myself into it. But the Mona Lisa, it's so detailed. She, he, it's so detailed that it just becomes a mystery. It might be a more intriguing piece of art. But in terms of projecting oneself into the art, the smiley face is like, in the design space, we talk about this example all the time. Smiley face or Mona Lisa, what do you want? And so when it comes to website design, people think, especially local small business, well, it's all about mom and pop's air conditioning, and put us on the about page, and here's our brand. I love my logo, my Times New Roman italicized logo. I mean, it's like, wait, time out. But you and I have talked often about design, and there's this industrial minimalism of black and white websites that we've kind of enjoyed. But the thing about that is there's no personality to them. And when you use that design, what you're saying is I want your personality to be involved. So for example, an artist's website, the website itself, the trend right now is to advise your website should largely be black and white. The photos of your craft should be the dynamic thing. And that way, when people come in, they kind of come in and can project themselves, like the smiley face, they can project themselves into this more. Here's my point. We will see that when you log in with your wallet, it's one thing to log in and say, I'm Stacy, and have a username and a password, or use my Google email. But when you do that, you're logged in and you're just a user. But as we get closer and closer to ZK knowledge, ZK proof, where all of my preferences are not in my cell phone, they're in my wallet. And where's my wallet? Everywhere. And when I log into a website with my wallet, I've indicated all of my preferences, and it will tell me light mode or dark mode for this website. But what we will have available to us is an entire suite of CSS standards, and that's this. Instead of programming a website with light mode, dark mode, Oculus mode, people will have that built into their ZK identifications. And the only thing we'll have on the website is how hooked into that person's wallet we want to be, and how much that person has made available. So I might think I like the Doodles branding. Let's just say I love Doodles. I could go to the CNN website if they do this, log in with my wallet, and instead of red and gray and black, it's all Doodles. Because Doodles exhibits, they're a rare brand that exhibits the personality I want to see in the world, positivity and inclusion and affirmation. It's just such a fun brand. When I go to the White House website, I don't want to see Biden or DeSantis, right? I want to see Doodles because I consume information better there. So I don't know if that will take from a consumer demand perspective, but you are going to see massive experimentation in the website space as we have more and more wallet enabled. And notice I didn't even talk about e-commerce. This to me is the power of token gating a website, not content and not e-commerce. Those are barriers to entry. Customization removes road bumps. Go ahead. Go ahead. What's your thought?
Yeah, no, I just love this because what it made me think of was I love this conversation where it's going because it made me think of Steve Jobs. And what Steve Jobs said about the Apple was exactly that.
Hmm.
We want to give people the most beautiful tabula rasa, right? The blank
Yes.
slate through which they portray their world. Every single Apple, we want them to customize it. We want them to change the background image to their puppy or to the soccer field or to, the waves that they just surfed because that makes them happy.
Yes.
And that is kind of what you're saying with the more modern code artsy look right now. And if you don't know what Grant and I are talking about and you're like, this is weird, I'm still listening to this website podcast, just go to Nike.com or Apple.com and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. You can also open up Airbnb, you can open up Instagram. All of these have very, very simple designs of essentially just black and white, even Twitter. And then the stuff that you see is just what everyone puts up there, is
Mm-hmm.
their photos, is their words. That's the only color. The life is brought to without the community on platform or on the website, it doesn't really exist, right? It's just kind of a really beautiful canvas that's easy to kind of navigate through. And yeah, so anyways, what you were talking about totally just spurred on that idea of Steve Jobs. We want everyone to customize and every Apple product should be someone's and feel like it's a part of them because it is, because it reflects, as you're saying, when everyone's wallet is, I guess it's kind of like, building on that, when everyone's wallet has all that information and you go to a website and it doesn't ask you, if you go to any website right now, it's like, do you want to have cookies or not?
Yeah.
That question may or may not even be a thing in the future. You just may say like cookies or not to every website and then it just knows
Yeah.
when you get there. And that would be sweet. And then if it's cookies, then like you said, then the White House can all of a sudden look more optimistic, look more playful, look more thoughtful like Doodles rather than like cold, archaic, and bureaucratic the way it does, because maybe that's honestly just how you want to consume information.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that makes perfect sense. Now, attention, commodifying it. Where do you think this goes? Because you've just talked about the power of the individual, the power of the
Yeah.
creator, the power of the influencer and I like you said, not in a traditional sense. It's more of like in a cultural sense. Like Steve Jobs for me was an influencer. If he were alive now, we would call him an influencer because he would still be the head of Apple.
Yeah.
He would be the face. He would be on TikToks talking about the latest iOS. You wouldn't think of him as a thought leader or maybe even a genius. You may actually just give him the moniker influencer.
Sure.
If Leonardo da Vinci were around, that dude would be on TikTok talking about how he's painting, right? Like
Yeah.
making some invention and just trying to get funding. But we may call him a societal or an entrepreneurial influencer. And I love that you've kind of said that because I think sometimes when we think about influencers, and if you're listening to this, influencers for a long time, I think honestly, up until the pandemic, had a really shitty thing. Like, oh, you're just trying to be an influencer.
Sure.
Like, that's not a real job. That's not a thing. Well, when the whole world got locked inside for months on end, and then
Mm-hmm.
everyone just got to their phone and their screen time doubled or tripled,
Yeah.
then the attention really became the oil.
Mm-hmm.
So, for you working with small businesses, what are conversations that you are having with clients? And just in general, what's your strategy to maximize the world we live in where attention is the new commodity?
So it's tough. So like I don't use Facebook much, right? Like I post a little bit on Instagram, but and then like my reels and my posts on Instagram obviously go to Facebook, but every now and again I'll go back to Facebook and skim through the feeds. One thing I've noticed, there is a huge number of people who are now posting video, and good on them. Like seriously, good on them. And so there's two components. The conversation I'm having with small business clients is if you're not on video, you're not in business. If you're not in video, you won't be in business in the next 3 to 5 years. And you cannot do it. Why? Because it's the minimum bar. You're not going to get breakthrough leads. It's the one telling that, you know how websites used to be. If you don't have a website, people don't believe you're in business. Now it's if you are not, or someone on your staff, or someone wearing your polo with your logo, and maybe they're just a contractor. If someone is not on, and I mean on video, I don't mean quote graphics from Canva. You need all of that. But if someone is not putting personality to your brand, if you're not, and I summarize, if you're not on video, if you're not in video, you're not in business. You just don't know it yet. And that has to happen. Well, I don't want to be a TikTok influencer. Then if that's your paradigm, you might as well close up shop now, because that's not what we're talking. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about just to signal that we're real people, because local business is now getting so fed up with Google searches. They only put, you think about this, they only put stock in reviews, like the 5-star reviews. It's important for ranking, it's important for the result. But as a consumer, I only pay attention to that when I'm visiting a restaurant I've never been to. If it's my local haunt and it's like a local coffee shop here, and the stars drop down to 2 stars, I still don't care. I don't look at it. So local search is evolving. And when it comes to attention, small businesses, the minimum standards that they're on video. But then from there, there's a great book on here, Get Different by Michael McKelowitz, a local business guy. And it's his marketing book. And he said, people forget that marketing is not a series of activities to do what other people are doing to stay in business. Marketing is to be remarkable. When someone sees that thing, they should either clutch their pearls or laugh their head off. And it's like, well, that's not me. I'm a local AC guy. Why are you in business, bro? Like, if like the consumer is changing. The consumer wants a relationship because they've been so inundated with ads, because they've been so in it. Can't just be another video person. I get that, but that's now the signal that the lights are on. So you at least have to do that. And you don't have to be the most entertaining people. Remember, there's detail-oriented, non-extroverted consumers. And they don't want someone wearing a lampshade on their head throwing a party. Maybe they just want an even Steven who's got like basic answers to, hey, this is air conditioning. I want to get with that guy. They're level-headed. I want to get with that girl. She's totally level-headed. She talks intelligently. She's got decent prices. But that personality has got to come through. So where is attention at? I don't know if I agree that attention is the new oil. I believe it was. I believe abstracting it, information is the new oil. So here's what I mean, why that paradigm shift is important. What I described about these UX experiments of customization. I want to toggle the light mode on. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to connect my wallet and get a Doodles or a Spark experience because I like that feedback loop. I like going to CNN.com and seeing my own colors, I just want that feedback loop. Well, a lot of advertisers, a lot of businesses will say, we'll lose out on ad revenue. Well, why not? It's not just eyeballs on ads and banner ad placement where advertising is. There are humongous, almost unfathomable big data contracts that actually have a better value of consumer behavior. So they'll hit my cookies and I'll go somewhere where there's banner ads or they'll email me. But the big stuff is what's going on under the hood. If I can customize, if I have in my what will amount to my NFT ID, my ZK proof ID, and I connect my Ethereum or my MetaMask wallet or whatever wallet, Polygon wallet, to CNN.com, and I get this experience that's just doodles, as this example goes. That is a huge piece of feedback to CNN. And who's going to want to know about my behavior? Doodles does. And their competitors. So that you're not losing out on ad revenue. So attention is still highly valuable, but the information about my intention is more valuable. And so I think customization has to happen. Now, I just described CNN.com and jumped off of the small business owner. The small business owner will not have a budget for any of this. They won't have a budget for it. So their best bet is to create what I would call a near minimalist website with a very clear brand and a very clear piece of messaging, and then a bunch of video and photo. Put your personality, because I don't think you can compete on quality with the ChatGPT or quantity on the ChatGPT revolution. ChatGPT is just starting, but by the end of this year, content won't matter to anyone but the Google algorithm. That's it. We're inundated. We now know. Have I told you? I don't call this the information age. I call this the omniscience age. So the difference is information. You had a lot of information to go through. Omniscience means I don't even have to go through it. I just know it at will. ChatGPT is the embodiment of this. I don't have to go through Google search results anymore. I can get an approximate solution to what I need, and it's enough for me to act on in good faith and execute on. So I don't even have to search anymore. So that's better than my memory. Like, we are already cyborgs, it's better than my memory. So I have an innate knowing that if someone's blog site with 100 blog posts that are search engine optimized to rank them, I don't have to read a single one of those. By the end of this year, consumers view time and read time on websites, except for like medium and intentionally long form content, website view time will go down. So attention is going down. So do you want to keep someone on your website, or do you want to have the TikTok effect, the shortest distance between them and a decision? And that's what we do with calls to action and buttons on the website. But we need to do this now, the video. And that video, and so now we're not making decisions based on, wow, this guy had a great article in the top 5 points for X, Y, and Z. We don't care anymore. That only mattered because it ranked higher. And it's like, oh, look at all the writing they did. They really took it. They must care about this. That's all we were trying to conclude. Does this person care most about AC or landscaping or cleaning my home? Well, who cares most? And so that's how we perceive value. Well, if two people are charging $100 for the same landscaping service, my decision used to be, who seems to care more? Because if they care more and know the nuances and know how to treat this shrub or that shrub, but it still costs $100, I'm getting more value from the one because they're bringing more expertise. That's used to be how we made consumer decisions. But I believe that's going away entirely. I believe we go, who is the most connectable? Who do I connect with? And so I believe it's the impetus for all business owners not to go like, I got 100 posts, I got 300 posts, I got 50,000 posts, and I'm funnier than you, and I'm louder than you, and I can talk as fast as Grant. No, I think it's how authentic you can be and present in video, and you are completely at the will of which consumers that resonates with by authenticity. The power's in the consumer more than ever, but the impetus is on you to be yourself more than ever. And I think what that will do is it'll create a crisis of identity, and business owners who are only in it for the money, they're going to flame out. You're going to see a lot of small business people who are like, I'm in it for the money, and haven't figured out these rubrics and don't have the profit margins to kind of like hire media people and marketing people. And so they're going to like go, oh shit, like I can't be on camera too when I'm doing the billing and the bookkeeping and the actual fulfillment. Like I can't play this way. Well, I think it's going to force in small labor-based service trades. I think it's going to cause a revolution over the next 7 years, and you won't even hear about it. It won't make news because it'll be so spread out across rural America. But in those pockets, those dark pockets that don't really appear much except locally, you'll see a resurgence of people who are doing it because they find joy and can be authentic in it. It won't be riches though. It'll be a trade.
From what I gather, what you've said is the consumer of a product, whether it's small business or not, is no longer interested if they're going to get the best value. They're more interested if basically you're relatable. Is that
Well,
what you're saying? Because you said connectable, but I'm
connectable.
not sure. Yeah, is there another word that you could
Um,
use there to? Because
it
I go to relatable, but
I mean,
maybe it's not.
maybe relatable is better. Relatable is, I chose not to use the word relatable in that moment because connectable, I chose that word. Let me go at this way. You could say value. People will still always, I think it's intrinsic to human nature to get more for their money. But like if we thought, I don't know if you remember a book came out back in the day called Hot, Flat, and Crowded. Like it was the internet revolution, what we used to call Web 3.0. We don't call it that anymore. It used to be like in 2010, it used to be called Web 3. And it was how the world was flat. We put the tools in a person in Kenya's hands, and they can now do the same, make the same impact in the world that I can as a digital native. Like the world is flat. And the same with like, this had, implications with like outsourcing to India, right? So it's a flat world, and all things being equal, that was from a pricing perspective and from a service supply perspective. Now with customization like I'm talking about, this flattens the demand side. So demand is now being flattened because the consumer's going, "Oh, in the omniscience age, I realize that I don't have limited options. I have unlimited options." Every graduating class has about 3 college girls who decided to start a social media management company out of their dorm room. They're doing it for cheaper. So value decisions are still there, but I don't think the consumer can tell the difference between value anymore. Between what you do and what I do. We won't say live, but like you probably charged a couple grand more for your website of your clients than I did. But people can't tell. They don't know. They don't even know from service level. But what they did is they knew you.
So, what you're basically saying is the world of small businesses are now, and I think this might be a salient analogy, so you can check me.
Yeah.
The world of small businesses are now just mechanics. Because if
Yeah.
I bring my car to 2 mechanics, I really can't tell. I'm gonna go to the mechanic I actually like better.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, that guy's really nice. He vibes with me."
Yeah.
We both watch the Celtics, for
Yeah.
example, or whenever we meet, our kids play together.
Yes.
I'm actually not even sure because I literally, as someone with lower knowledge in that space, I can't tell the difference,
Yeah.
you know? And I can't actually tell who actually fixed my car better. Maybe if I actually really thought about like, oh, over the last 10 years, so and so did it better than so and so, and I bring it back less or whatever. But is that where you're
Pretty
going?
much. And then you throw in AI revolution, not just ChatGPT, but Midjourney. And now, like you and I were watching a video where someone spoke into their Jarvis app and it built a website. People know. I'm telling clients now, hey, listen, I will sell you a year's worth of content, and I'm only charging you for the hourly labor. I used to charge an hour and a half per blog post. I can do 4 blog posts in 30 minutes now that are search engine optimized and guaranteed. And I tell them this and they still respond, and I show them how to do it themselves, and they still say, could you just do it for me? And so an informed audience is now assuming there are plenty of hacks and shortcuts available to everyone. You just happen to have the most informed fingertips. Everyone has it though. It's a flat world. Susie, who just graduated college, for her logo design, she knows that everyone knows they could go to Midjourney and type in this person's logo. Oh, I like this one. Do a high resolution version. Oh, I'm good. And they're still going to pay, maybe not 2 grand like they would have back in the day. Maybe they'll $800 because we all know the tech is there. But I like Susie. I worked with Susie's mother. So when I say connectable, I don't just mean relatable. I mean, it's the next step. Okay, because there's so many people, there's going to be multiple relatable people. Now, does this person seem like someone I would go have drinks with?
Okay, perfect. And I'm glad that you got there because I think that this is quasi full circle to where we started this
Hmm.
conversation, which is like you and I build websites. What's the future for small businesses if they're listening to this, or if anyone's listening to this and they're just kind of interested with like how people are going to essentially engage between with the vendor and seller relationship on the internet?
Yeah.
And you're basically saying, well, in a world where we can get online, I could open up my phone literally and probably buy anything I want, maybe on the planet.
Yeah, I think so.
If I had the money,
Yeah.
I could be like, "Yeah, I want a house," or "I want
Sure.
3 diamonds," or "I want drugs," or
Anything.
"I want, like, clowns to come to my house right now and blow up 100 balloons and then pop all of them." Like,
Yeah.
that's probably a task rabbit somebody would be down for. So, in that world, what you're looking for, and this is something that I'm finding more and more as a motif that's just throughout many episodes with More Than Blockchain and honestly not Crypto Bros and a lot of stuff we talk about, is that in a more digital world, we're gonna want more analog relationships
Totally.
because in a
Totally.
more analog world, we wanted more digital relationships. It
100%.
used to be super cool to say you work from home. Well, now that's kind of like more and more the run of the mill. At least people do it at least once a week, maybe not full time. Working from your computer used to be like a rarity. It used to mean that you were high up in the C suite or you were special person and you were able to do that 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like a lot of people are doing that. So that to me is something that, it's almost like the more digital, the more AI starts to take over, the more human connection we're going to look for. And I
Yes.
think that's a really, really important thing for small businesses to hear because many small businesses that I've built websites, I'm still building websites and that I support, they're not leaning into probably their greatest asset,
Mm-mm.
which is their narrative,
Their
their
narrative, they're
story.
not telling a story.
They're not telling a story.
Mm-mm.
They're just trying to get money. They're just trying to say, "Hey, I sell this t-shirt. It's amazing. You should wear it. Look at these hot models." Not, "Let me tell you why I'm selling these
Yeah.
t-shirts, you know? Let me tell you how I got here." That is what I think we're gonna want in a world like you're saying, where we can create content, like, for days, and if you're listening to this and you're a small business owner or
Yeah.
you're just curious and you've never opened up ChatGPT, go to OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
and you can create a free account on ChatGPT
Yeah.
and you can start to play around with it and you'll see what Grant's saying. Instead of taking him an hour and a half to create an SEO optimized blog entry, he can do 4 in 30 minutes. And is that on ChatGPT 4 or is that on, are you still doing free?
I'm on 4, but you could do it on 3 too if you know how to do prompts. I mean, and prompts don't take long to learn. You just ask GPT, "How do I shape prompts?" and it'll tell you. But yeah, like I mean, that's either one, 3 or 4. Um, we could do and Google Bard. I mean, now Google Bard's online and people aren't talking about it, but I could do the same thing, and it gives you 3 drafts to select from of answers.
The thing I think moving forward for small businesses is I think Gary Vee said this a long time ago, but he was like, look, like in the future, all businesses or like every individual is basically going to be their own business and we're going to
Yeah.
have all the tools.
Yes.
And we're really getting to that place quickly. And I think it's scary because small businesses are just like, I don't need all these people anymore. I have
Mm-mm.
ChatGPT. I have
Mm-hmm.
Midjourney. Canva now has, which if you don't know what Canva is, it's a great little design tool. They have free accounts. You can also have paid accounts. They have good AI stuff. And Facebook is rolling out a new AI marketing tools by the end of the year.
Oh,
So the point being, if you're listening to this and you're a small business owner, or if you just are been thinking about, hey, how do I get up a side hustle? It's actually never been easier. The barrier to entry is so low right now. And if you leverage all of these products that we're talking about, and I think maybe take an interest in token gating, which is where you're basically going to have a paywall of membership
yeah.
and you're going to use NFTs, but I think AI and some little bit of blockchain, probably more like 10% blockchain, 90% AI, you can start to really rock.
Yes.
And I think if you lean into that narrative and you're on video, that seems to me to be the thing that's going to hopefully help separate you as we come into the world,
Yeah.
like you said, where we're going to be in AR and you're going to be walking around with some goggles
Totally.
and you're going to want to order Domino's and you're going to say Domino's and you're going to use your eyes or you're going to say scroll right and then you're going to pick it or whatever.
Mhm.
Maybe Domino's is closed. Well, what's the local pizza shop? Well, the only local pizza shops that are going to show are the ones that have the AR
I can get a menu,
optimization
yeah,
that can get a menu.
yeah.
And I think that's unbelievable. And I'm glad that we somehow we somehow got there because I do think that we're getting into a world where companies' valuations and companies' value and their demand and the supply and why clients choose A over B
Mm,
is so fascinating. And it's good to
yeah.
hear that it goes beyond the SEO. It goes
Oh,
beyond just being
oh,
found.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's true, and going beyond the SEO is funny, like, we used to say about Christian church, and my background as a Christian, I feel like I have the ability to critique this because I'm critiquing myself in a lot of ways. The Christian church is often 15 to 20 years behind the technological curve. And I dare say it's probably the truth of a lot of religions. In fact, a lot of faith based, any faith structures, including science faith structures, they're usually defined based on when they say enough is enough. If you think about the Quakers, they said enough is enough. If you think about Christianity, blah, blah, blah. So they're usually behind a technological curve because they're engaging with it reluctantly because something about it threatens their faith structures. But what I'm realizing is I don't know if it's that the tech is truly speeding up or if it's always been this way and I haven't noticed it until now. But small business, not big tech, not big business. Average small businesses doing 48 to 52 a year in revenue because they can't figure it out. Average small businesses are usually running 7 to 10 years behind the curve. And if they're asking about SEO, you're right. We got to go so far beyond the SEO to show up because they're asking me about SEO. Meanwhile, I'm watching their website not show up. And I could answer the SEO question, but like we got to have like a video question and we need to penetrate the attention veil. And you're asking me about SEO practices. Like it's literally, it's relevant, but it's not the enchilada, man. So I'm glad you summarized it like that. That was good.
Yeah, I had a conversation like that because I'm building a website right now, and I had a conversation like that, and they were really talking about, well, we need all these web pages because we're really worried about the SEO. And I'm like, I think we can put the SEO aside until we get our LinkedIn, our Twitter, and our YouTube where we want to be.
Yeah.
because our competitors are crushing those three
Yeah.
platforms. So until we do it, you
Yeah.
could be number one on the search for certain things, but then people are going to start to actually look at you to figure out your narrative.
Yes.
And it's cool if you have a great website, but then they go to your Twitter and you're not active. They go to your Instagram and you don't have a video. They can't find personality. There's not a video of the CEO, but they go to the competitors who maybe has has SEO, top SEO, or it doesn't, but they find the competitor and they go to any one of the social platforms, and lo and behold, there's the CEO talking about why they decided to found this company.
Yes.
And I don't think that that is something that many small businesses and just many people who are building their own personal brands or influencers are thinking. And this reminds me that if you go to YouTube and you find More Than Blockchain,
Yeah.
I need to update a new video to welcome people
Samesies.
to the, I need to welcome people to the YouTube. Say, hey, I'm Jarrett. This is what More Than Blockchain is about. This is why I created it. And this is why I hope you engage with it. And it sounds simple, but I still haven't done it. And
Yeah.
here I am preaching. So it's definitely things that people need to keep top of mind as they move forward and they're building either small businesses or their own personal brands.
Yeah.
As we come to a close here, where can people find you? Where's the best place? Where can they find your narrative, Grant?
We're talking about relevance, and I haven't updated all of my stuff because we've been so busy content creating. I would say, Google Grant Sparks and I will come up. I mean, if you just Google Grant Sparks, my YouTube channel, Grant Sparks, is there, and that's slowly building my narrative. My website, stateofthespark.com, will evolve to represent more and more of this, but you can see all of my shows linked there. And those are the best places. I mean, my last name's a bear to spell, so I won't even try. But if you look up Grant Sparks, you'll find just about everything you need there.
Yeah, Grant, I'll go ahead and throw all your socials in the episode show notes and where people can find you. And if they're interested, especially if they're a small business and you're trying to figure out your website right now, and you're just trying to figure out the new landscape,
Yeah.
I will throw all that information in the episode notes so people can find it.
And our web design company, sparkmysite.com. Put that down there as well. Yeah, that'd be huge. Thank you.
Done. Well, thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, man.
And I will see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode, and be sure to check out this episode's show notes if you want to get in touch with Grant, learn more about his website business, and as always, no matter where you're listening, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode or know a small business owner, an influencer, a creator who's in that moment of thinking about their web design, go ahead and share this episode with them. As always, please follow us on social media at More Than Blockchain, and if you haven't done so already, do follow us on YouTube as I'm putting up exclusive content there weekly. Thanks again for checking out More Than Blockchain, and I'll see you next time.